We're ready to go. So thank you everyone for staying with us for this presentation today. I know that a boat trip down on the harbour would have been lovely in the nice sunshine, autumn sunshine, but you opted to stay with us, so myself and Constantine are very thankful for that. So welcome to you all. My name's Tom Mellor, and I'm the Head of OEM Technical Support and Digital Standards at the UKHO. And whether you're joining us today in person here or virtually, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to this workshop on improving safety with event-driven updating. This is a really important time for our sector. We're moving at a very fast pace, transforming and innovating in many different areas. And it's changing fast, and it's rapidly evolving. And the future of shipping is going to be very different for us because of two defining factors. The firstly is digitalisation, which is a real big area which we're going to talk about, and then the other one, which obviously everyone's aware of, is decarbonisation. But first and foremost, we believe that the next generation of navigational and marine technologies will be at the very core of how we embrace the possibilities of this digital era. And we're going to take significant steps forwards in addressing some of these challenges that digitalisation throws up. Today, Constantine and I will explain more about the next steps in this development of navigational solutions, focusing on the technology which is moving us forward to a much more dynamic and real-time product and service delivery than we've ever had before. So today in our workshop, we're going to be covering the following agenda items. The first thing really is for us to talk about what event-driven updating is and what that's really going to mean for shipping companies. And then we'll move on to a demonstration from Constantine on how distributors will start to embrace that and the types of services that they could be offering to shipping companies. We'll then move on to look at how we at the UKHO have worked on this project and included all of our distributors in the development of that project. Look at some of the regulations around keeping your ECDIS systems up to date and how we've tackled that with event-driven updating. And then I'll give a demonstration of the public interface that we've developed for accessing all of this information in an event-driven architecture. And then we'll follow up at the end of the presentation with some discussions and questions from anyone, if they have any, around how this next generation of navigational services will work. And we want to get some of your feedback on what your thoughts are on some of the regulations and how that will work in practice. So we'll move on to actually looking at the current delivery of our services and digital services at the moment. And when we do that, we have to look back a bit in history. Like we had heard at the beginning of the presentation today, we've had paper charts for many, many years. And when we moved to digital, we started off by copying paper charts to produce our ENCs. And we didn't just copy the content from the chart. We also copied some of those practices which have been ingrained with mariners for many years. So they're used to having a weekly bulletin of all of the notice to mariners come to the vessel, and then on a Friday or whatever, the corrections to those paper charts were made. And when we moved to digital, we took all of those same practices and we said, right, well, there'll be a weekly delivery of all of our digital updates to the vessel. The vessel will then apply them on a Friday, just in the same way as we did with paper charts. Everything will be fine. But that really then doesn't allow us to modernise and to actually take advantage of the technical innovations that have come along, like cloud computing and all of the other things, and the rise of the connectivity which we've seen over the recent years. And so what we've been doing at the UKHO is looking at how we can modernise that delivery of our digital data to the mariner, utilising all of these new technologies. And that's led us to the realisation that actually we can break away from that weekly cycle of delivery of digital data to an event-driven process. And in doing so, we can release data to the customer in a much more timely manner and get those safety-critical information out to the mariner, saving days, weeks, if not lots and lots of time, where that information would have been in the UKHO just sitting there waiting to be added to a physical disk or a package of information ready to get out to the mariner. So if we look at the current process that we employ in the UKHO today, data comes into the UKHO from various sources. We get some information from RENCs, we get some information direct from hydrographic offices, and then that information is brought together and validated to make sure that there isn't any errors in the E&C information before we deliver it to vessels. And there's a period of time, once that information has been collected together, when it needs to be replicated and it goes for physical production, and that all eats into the time required to deliver that information to the mariner. So in the worst case scenarios, it says here, that can be up to 10 days for that information to get to the vessel. Now, our vision for the project that we started at the UKHO is to remove all of these time delays in the process between receiving the E&Cs at the UKHO and then publishing them for the mariner. And the goal of this is to enable navigationally significant and safety-critical information to be displayed on that ECDIS system as soon as possible. So that can only be a good thing. And what we're really hoping is that all of our distributors will take up the challenge of delivering those event-driven services to mariners and build new services around the pipeline that we've really created. So this project at the UKHO is well underway, and we've been working with our digital distributors over the last year to determine the best method for the notification of this information and the retrieval of that data. And the first product that will be part of this digital data delivery is AVCS, our E&C service. And we will be taking that E&C service and delivering that through this event-driven process. First and foremost, we'll be delivering in the first stage of the project just the E&C updates via event-driven architecture. But then in the second phases of the project, we'll be looking at bringing in the new additions and bringing in cancel and replace cells as well. So here's just a graphic to show you really how this information is received at the UKHO. And there you can see we take almost 4 days for that information to come into us currently. It's then validated, and the information is checked to make sure that we haven't got errors in any of the data, none of the critical errors that can cause ECDIS systems to malfunction. And then we have this period of time where that information is sent for replication to produce that physical media. And then eventually, after potentially 10 days, that information is made available for distributors for onward dissemination to our customers. So here you can see that this really is a time-consuming process. And by moving to the event-driven process, where actually, if we receive the data on a Monday and it can be validated the same day, we can potentially move that data directly out for distributors to come and collect and move that to the vessel, saving, as we said, potentially up to 10 days of time. So this is how we expect the service to work. So at the UKHO, we've been modernising the way in which we collate all of the information, and there's been a lot of work in our back-end systems to be able to decouple production away from the paper charts and to be able to move to a place where we can make that digital data available for our distributors. And we've been building new APIs for them to come and connect into the cloud to be able to take that information. And what will happen when we move into this new architecture is that we will receive that data at the UKHO. Again, just like the process you saw before, it'll all be validated, make sure that none of that information contains any of those critical errors in the E&Cs. And then we will make that available, posted onto the file share service, which is a cloud-based environment, for our distributors to come and collect. There'll be a notification service that we're building to tell them there's a new event there, that if they have customers with these E&Cs that require those updates, that they can come and collect that information. And then it will be the distributors who will build services based on that new pipeline that we're delivering. So Chart World will be looking at, and you'll hear more about what Konstantin's going to talk about in a minute, in a concept of how they will use the APIs to come and retrieve the information from the UKHO and then develop services around that that will eventually deliver new update information directly to the ECDIS, saving all of that time that we saw at the beginning of the process. And this is where we see there's going to be a real step change. So previously, everyone's been reliant on having weekly supply of information. But breaking this cycle, we can deliver that information to the ECDIS, and this is where the new concepts come in. Should we automatically apply that information directly to the ECDIS system and then offer notifications to the mariner that there's been a change to the underlying chart and that potentially the new route or the route information could be affected by that update that's been applied? And these are the types of questions that we're going to pose back to you later on in the workshop. And there's been quite a lot of talk recently about ECDIS isn't working optimally because some of the hydrographic information that's provided doesn't contain enough contour intervals for the ECDIS to be able to set an accurate safety contour. And this was really highlighted in the recent MEIB, the DMEIB report, where they recognised that this was a serious issue. Now, what's happened is in the last year or so, the IHO have produced guidance for hydrographic offices on the production of high-density ENCs. And high-density ENCs are generally produced where there's a very dynamic area that requires regular surveying, or where there's a critical underlying depth where there needs to be more accurate information. And the reason we're talking about this is because if you have a very mobile area that's very dynamic that requires regular surveying, the previous process that we had where hydrographic offices would ingest that information, look at that survey, create the updates that were required for the charts, and then eventually move that information all the way through the process. By the time it gets to the vessel, that information is now out of date. It really is of no use. So what we're looking at here is this event-driven process will enable us to be able to receive the survey information from ports and process it much more quickly and get that information out to the mariner in a much more timely manner. So whether it's HDNCs or whether we're looking at further down the road, and we'll talk about this in a minute, S102, which is your high-density bathymetry from based upon the new IHO S100 standard, the concept of event-driven updating really does revolutionise the way in which we can get information out to the mariner in a much more timely manner. Now I'm going to hand over to Konstantin.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Konstantin. I work as a solution director for Chart World, and my main area of responsibility defining general design for digital data services and distribution systems and the data that we deliver. How do we deliver data to the user? And well, what I will explain to you actually, it's some idea how would we design the system for the event-driven update, how to deliver this event-driven update, and how will it affect our customer, how will it affect our end user on board the vessels. And that's the way, how do we design the system? We always trying to put ourselves to a place of end user. We try to imagine how would end user to operate with this data and how will it affect their daily operations. So when we looked at this event-driven update, yeah, as Tom mentioned, it's a big change from a normal chart updating procedures, weekly chart updating procedures by notices to mariners that came from old times. Then paper charts were corrected by paper notices to mariners, but it's still the similar process now, even if it's digital, but it's still done once a week or before the voyage plan. With the event-driven update, the process will be significantly different. And so we must evaluate all factors that will affect the end users. And here I will explain our ideas, how can we design the system and how can we deliver the data to the user in a way so it gives additional benefits and improves safety instead of adding additional hassle or unnecessary workload or additional workload to end user. First, we receive notification from UK Head of Traffic Office regarding availability of new update. And well, the first idea would be so we just receive notification, then we collect data and send it out distributed to end user. But then I think that the more effective would be not to deliver this particular update or this particular chart to all our customers, to all our end users. Instead, we track the vessel route. Actually, we know what the voyage plan of each of our customers with our My Route appraisal software. We have access to all the vessels, to all routes or voyage plans of our customers. So once we receive notification from UKHO, we select vessels affected by this particular update by analyzing the vessel routes that they are currently using for monitoring. And the idea to deliver this particular update only to those or that require this particular update for the current voyage. And of course, the second scenario for end user would be like during the voyage planning process, they normally update all the charts required for the voyage plan. And of course, they send requests to us for up-to-date charts and up-to-date data. And always the latest data will be delivered in this case, in case of voyage planning. Well, then if we look from perspective of end user on board the vessel, how should it look like? We could deliver it directly to the ECDIS, and I will explain design ideas, but actually the ideas how can we make it work with existing ECDIS models without any modifications to the ECDIS. Initially, idea was like we can deliver it automatically and install automatically. But that's not the way actually it now works in the ECDIS, and it does not conform to ECDIS performance standard, because the performance standard says that mariner must analyze and accept every update before applying it to the system. That's on one hand. On the other hand, then ECDIS, I will switch now to our eGlobe ECDIS, just to show how does it look like in sailing mode. So what we assume here that the user, when navigating the vessel, then running, it doesn't work. I have to stop presentation probably. Can I have some support for stopping the presentation and switching to... Okay, here we have the vessel or vessel ECDIS in daily operations, and I expect that mariner would do a lot of task, maneuvering, collision avoidance, anti-grounding related monitoring during the watch. And at this stage, we don't want to disturb or distract the user from normal vessel operations or from driving the boat, actually. So that's why we don't want to show some kind of pop-up window in the ECDIS that there are new updates and then you should take some actions. Instead, what we deliver is we send notifications to our Myra software. Myra stands for My Route Appraisal. And basically, that's software not installed on the ECDIS station, but it is normally used somewhere on the bridge, but back of the bridge, not in front of the bridge. And it's part of the planning. It's not the planning station itself, but it's part of the planning station that delivers, responsible for initial voyage planning and responsible for the data delivery. Here, we send notification to this software from ChatVault, the notification that there is a new update for your current voyage is available. Please take an action. From here, well, the user could download updates directly from this software, save it to USB stick, go to the ECDIS. That's actually, we consider it as it's an additional hassle, additional work and challenge for the user, and especially during the voyage monitoring until when underway. So we believe that actually the most effective would be the user got notified by Myra software regarding availability of new update. Then the user goes to the ECDIS, and that what we promote here, and I think it's essential to have the ECDIS connected to the chat update service directly, and to be able to download and apply updates directly without need to load it from USB drive. We believe it improves safety for the ECDIS because it's a USB-free. It actually eliminates risk of viruses and hacker attacks, because it's, the ECDIS normally connected. It's not like a normal connected to internet directly. Of course, it will use firewall and special certified gateway for this connection. And it will be allowed to connect only certified services and servers of data distributors. So when the mariner on board now navigating the vessel, still a couple of actions is required from the user. And at this stage, actually, if there are some time for the officer on watch to apply additional data, apply updates to the ECDIS, then the user could go to the chat loading, scan drive for new data, and just install and update the chat collection. That's the idea, and this is how could it work with the current version of the ECDIS. What happens next? The chats are installed, or updates is installed to the system. Status report, EC status report. If you don't know what is this, every ECDIS has a special functionality that shows that status of all EC data for the current vessel route, for the selected vessel route. So all updates is applied here. EC status report showing that all chats for the current voyage are up to date, that could be used. And what do we expect the user to do next? One option, the user could do the route safety check, or should do route safety check. That is quite time-consuming procedure, but because there are some changes in the charts, and if the user does not know what exact changes are, then probably the whole current route should be processed for another safety check. Another option, if the user knew what exactly was changed, and then review particular changes in particular chart under his route, and then accept this change and say, make a decision that this particular update does not affect my current route too much, or need to need to alter or change the route to avoid some dangerous objects that might come with the current update. So yeah, we consider two different scenarios here, and I think the second one is more effective, but we need to deliver the user information, what particular change in the C do we deliver for the current route. So yes, this is something we should think about. Yeah, I think it's a good simulation of the vessel internet connection because it's quite slow. And yeah, not so easy to download, but yeah, in general, it works. Well, so two use case scenarios. I explained how do we see the situation and the service from the user's perspective. And yeah, we have some topics that we would like to discuss and we would like to receive feedback. And yeah, probably implement this feedback in the system design. I think I can give the floor to Tom, right? Yeah.
Yep, back up. It's back up. It's back on the screen. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Konstantin. So I think Konstantin's really laid out for you now how it's possible to deliver services off of the event-driven architecture that the UKHO are delivering. And one of the things that's made this particularly possible for us at the UKHO is that actually the infrastructure just wasn't there 10 years ago for us to be able to even think about this. But digitalization has unlocked this possibility, and really with new technologies and mass technologies coming online, the infrastructure for us to be able to provide this new service has started to mature. And what we're seeing is actually there's been an explosion in the number of satellite systems that are being put up there. Everyone's probably heard of Elon Musk's Starlink. He's planning on some 40,000 satellites potentially going up into the mega constellation, which would just revolutionize the connectivity that we could have out at sea. And that then really starts to open up the gateways for us to be able to deliver more information to vessels and vessels to deliver information back to shore. And I think that really is what's going to enable us to be able to bring this service to life. And what we're seeing is that there is huge investments in this, and the UK government has actually acquired OneWeb, another satellite communication service, and this can only help to improve the broadband availability at sea. Now, as I said, this service that we've been building and the APIs that we've been developing haven't been done in isolation. When we started this project, one of the key things that we wanted to do was get feedback from our distributors around how we should make the service and how we should bring it online. And so we've been working really closely with our distributors, and we set this project up over a year ago now, and we've been working with them to determine the best possible way in which we could deliver this. And what we found is that actually by bringing the distributors in on this journey, we've actually hopefully been able to deliver something that meets their requirements and will offer the benefits that we've been seeking all the way through this. Now, we've come to a pretty critical point for us at the UKHO. We're actually in test at the moment for the service, and we're hoping to launch the service in a beta form for our distributors the week commencing the 8th of November. And from that point forward, the service will be available for our distributors to come and take all of that event-driven information and start to think about how they can build those services like Konstantin's just been talking about. Now, one of the issues which we had to overcome and we were looking at was how, if we were delivering event-driven updates to the vessel, would they prove their status, that the information that they were carrying on board was up to date? given that we're trying to break away from this weekly cycle of delivery of data. And looking into the existing standards, one of the problems that we foresaw was that actually the ENC status report, if you sent an exchange set with some event-driven data to the system and you only had a partial product.txt file that went along with that exchange set, then potentially the data that was received on the vessel would then change the overall status of your ENCs that were already installed on board. So any of you that have used the ENC status report will know these statuses that the ENCs receive. They either are up to date, not up to date, withdrawn or unknown. And by only sending a partial product.txt to the vessel, we would have set the status of all of those existing holdings that were already known to the system to unknown. And that's no good for the user. That's no good for someone who's trying to prove to port state control that all of their products on their ENC and their ECDIS are up to date. So working with the distributors and the ECDIS manufacturers who we have in the group, we determined that the best way for us to deliver this was to always send a full product.txt to the ECDIS currently, so that system would always have an up-to-date ECDIS ENC status report. And here you can see just this was the solution that we came up with, and then once we have that installed, all of the statuses for each of those products remain compliant, and there's not going to be a problem with sending event-driven exchange sets to the ECDIS system, because that ENC status report would still work as expected. Now, for us, there's a few key elements of the project in the event-driven updating service. First of all, we have to have a single source of the truth for all of our digital products. And this comes from that sales catalog service that we're building. Now, I said that we're going to start with the AVCS service, our ENC service, but eventually we will be bringing online all of the other digital services that we have within the UKHO portfolio. So we'll be looking at the Admiralty digital publications, all of the sailing directions, all of the digital data that we currently deliver will eventually go through this event-driven updating process. So we needed a single catalogue of information that would contain all of those products. And then we've built something called the file share service, which is effectively cloud storage, which we can allow distributors in to connect into via APIs to then download the files. And the third service that we've built is the exchange set service. And what this would allow distributors to do is, once they knew that there was a new event and some of their customers had those ENCs on board, they could come and request an exchange set from the file share service, and that would build a compliant package of information which could be delivered straight to the ECDIS. So those are the key functions of the event-driven service that we've built at the UKHO. Now, for us, when we look at the regulations, one of the key things for us is that we have a requirement to produce as quickly as possible that survey information and make that available in a timely manner to the mariner. And that's really where we're taking a huge step forward. And obviously, the enforcement of that regulation is then done by the port state control inspectors, who make sure that the mariners have that information on board. And the way in which we see potentially this moving is that if a vessel is still receiving the weekly service, then they would be audited and inspected on that basis. But if you're taking the event-driven service, then effectively you have a different uprate regime, and you have broken away from that week 40 or whatever it is, and you would be receiving those updates as and when they were received from the UKHO. And what we would really like to get to in the future, and something that we've talked about in the office, is a way of proving, if you were taking an event-driven service, that this service was approved by UKHO, by other organisations, which said that actually, if you are in receipt of those those regular updates, event-driven updates, then you will always have up-to-date charts on board. And the update regime and the way that it's inspected should be slightly different to the way in which a vessel which is taking a weekly service would be inspected. So here we go. Now, this is going to... I'd like to show you now a quick demo of our public interface for the file share service. And this really is in test at the moment. I don't want anyone to think this is the final thing. But we are eventually retiring the public FTP site, which some of you may have used in the past, and replacing it with access into the file share service. And I'm assured that this should work, so here goes nothing. I think. Right, no, we're going to connect into the other laptop, actually. Sorry about this. Right. Right, that worked, so that's okay. Brilliant. So once you have registered and you've gone through that first landing page, you get to the interface that allows you then to search all of the files that we have on the file share service. So the first thing that you have to do is to select the product that you're searching for. So in here we'd put AVCS. Oh, ah, dear. Here we go. I do apologise. I thought this was all set up ready. This just proves it. You've got to register here. Yeah. This is the trouble with trying to do it live. Right. Now let's see if this works. Aha, there we go. Right, brilliant. So once I've searched for that product type of AVCS, then it's returning for me all of the information that's currently publicly available for download via the FSS. And here you can choose to download either the DVD, as you can see here, and all of the information that's contained in the DVD, or you can download the CD files. And this would be the same no matter what information we put up there in that public-facing domain. Everything that you were used to receiving via the FTP would be available through this. Everyone awake still? Through this new interface. So that's that. So that, I can't even remember what I was going to say. So that's how it should work. So it doesn't matter really what product we put on there. It would be available for download. And we will be retiring at some point that FTP site in preference to this the file share service. But as this at the moment is really gives us something to develop off, because using operators and using some of these fields that we have at the moment probably aren't the most user-friendly parts of that service. So that's something that we're obviously going to be working on. Right, Konstantin, next. Just switch? Oh, okay, yeah, right, we'll do that on that.
Because it's the same.
Okay, yeah. So finally, we just wanted to touch on the fact that the event-driven service will not only support the existing products that we have today, but will also support the delivery of the new data products that potentially will be built upon S100. And for those of you that maybe aren't familiar, S100 is a new universal hydrographic data model that's been developed by the IHO using ISO 19100 series of geographic information standards. And it's been developed eventually to replace S57 to better accommodate the new requirements that we have for the delivery of digital data. And with a much broader foundation, S100 can be quickly extended to accommodate new future technologies. But what we've got up on the screen here are some of those new products that potentially, with S100, would require a different delivery update mechanism. And the event-driven architecture allows us to support these new delivery of this new data. So we touched on earlier about HDNCs, and their equivalent when we move into S100 is S102. And again, the delivery of that data in a timely manner is critical for the mariner to make sure that they have that safety information. And using an event-driven architecture, we can move that data to the end user as quickly as possible. So that's a real key thing. And again, when we look at products like the tidal levels, it's no good sending their information to the vessel if it's out of date, so we need to have a way in which we can get that to there. And obviously we've talked a lot about ENCs, but then when we look at the navigational warnings, again, the delivery of that information is obviously going to be key and very, very important that it's delivered in a timely manner. So the event-driven architecture isn't just going to support, as I said, the existing products. It's here and will hopefully help us revolutionise the delivery of the future navigational products that are being built at the moment by hydrographic offices. So that concludes our presentation for today. But now we would like to get some audience participation and really start the conversation going. So you've heard us talk a lot about what we believe the future could look like and what we're hoping to deliver to mariners to be able to deliver a safer service and get the information out to the user as soon as possible. But now we would like to get some feedback, really. So we've just posed a few questions up here at the moment, which we would like to open the floor now to anyone to ask us any questions. Yes, sir. Is there a mic? I think there's a microphone coming. Give us a little song.
In your new file share service, you mentioned that you will provide additional, let's say, the information the same was on FTP server. Do you consider to include download of individual cells, individual chart data? I will explain you why my question, from where my question coming. We have chart data, we have ENC provider, we have update provider. Sometimes it's 3 different companies. It's not efficient, I know, but different companies working in different way. And sometimes vessel is reporting, we don't have necessary charts, updates are not working. And then it's difficult to find who is guilty, ECDIS manufacturer, chart provider, or update provider. And we are providing access to the via eNavigator platform to the vessels that they can download, for example, AVCS permits, AVCS updates. But sometimes it's really necessary to download chart data, 2-3 charts, and not to download complete package, not to download complete DVD, and to download 2-3 charts. So will you consider this to be able downloading?
I think that is something that we're looking at, and we have the product manager for AVCS here, so I'm going to bring Chris up to give you a comprehensive answer on that one.
Mic'd up. So what Tom's been talking about is the technical delivery of the what used to be called the weekly stuff, our output from the UKHO, event-driven straight through to us making it available to distributors, and at the same time then distributors picking that up and then getting it to the vessel. So if you've got a user on board in a scenario like you were talking about who says, right, okay, I'm ready to do everything that has been updated since I last looked at it, which might be weekly, it might be daily, whenever, or he may have an issue, or he may have a change of course and just needs one new ENC. First of all, the distributor systems, if they're built into our event-driven, will already tell them if there's anything available. So that anything new will come straight through. If it's something that you need kind of in retrospect, something that was available but you've not bought it in the past, you just need it because you need a bit of support. Traditionally, they would either have to go to one of our distributors who is able to send them that single file on their own, or they would have to take the large data set and then try and find it on the right one. Yeah. So how do we make that better? And how do we make that when the large data set is all about the week and they're not a weak customer, they're an as soon as possible customer. So what we've done in this file share service at the moment, it stores all of the data that we make. Every single update goes into the file share service. A distributor can come in by API, make a call, and pull that down and send it on. We're also, because it's where we store all of our data, the bulk data, which is what currently is what we do on a weekly basis, will also go in the same place. So a public person can come in at the moment, will be able to dial in and say, give me the DVD. They may say, come and give me all of this week's data, the same as they can currently do on the FTP. Going forward, what they could say is that using the back-of-bridge software provided by the distributor, I need this particular one, send a call to the distributor makes the call to our server, the server creates a custom exchange set, puts it back through, bing, 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 drops through the things, and it turns that back on your desk. So they can use the same system initiated by a call by the vessel for a specific item. They will have the update catalog so they know what's available. Yeah. Going further forward, what we hope to do in the next year or so is to extend that a little bit and to allow a vessel to say, here's my permit set, give me a custom exchange set based on that permit set. So we're trying to make it as fluid and flexible as possible, but we think actually the real value is the distributor doing what they know best, serving their customers, and to say, oh, they're asking for this particular chart. I think we sent it to them last week. Why do they still need it? Do they have their ECDIS crashed? Do they need a custom exchange set to get them from here to the next port? We can do that. They have the knowledge. They have the knowledge of where you are. Your back-of-bridge software will have knowledge of where you are. So we're trying to build as flexible as possible, but if there's anything that we've missed, that's why we're here, to find out.
Unfortunately, in our case, we collected data from the distributor,
yeah.
And this exchange set still was not working.
Mm-hmm.
Most probably because of the problem of the ECDIS manufacturer.
Okay.
So that's why to find what I mentioned, 3 different companies who is guilty in this problem. That's why I requested, if it's possible, to download directly from UKHO chart data, not via distributor.
Yeah, so that's the part which we currently do with a piece of software we called ABCS Online Updating Service, which kind of does that, although it does for the whole permit set. But that kind of functionality where the end user can ask for a particular item is kind of coming next year. But it will be based on not just saying, please give me this particular one, but more likely based on, here's the permit, I want to have that one back.
Yeah, sure.
But if no,
only
but if
for which we can permit.
exactly, but if you said, give me everything since last week, then that's just a query. You know, I want everything that was released during Thursday to Thursday, this particular days, and we can send all that to you. So this is really powerful to be able to sort your requirements out. Right?
Andre.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Andrei Воробьев, Chat World. I have a question. Did you consider sort of categorization of the updates for this service? Because obviously, if you do have an update, for instance, which tells you, okay, the sport sounding value there changes from 80 to 82 meters, yeah, then there's no point to rush this update to the vessel. Yeah. On the other side, there might be a message telling you there is a wreck on a fairway which is relevant to the safety of navigation and that sort of stuff. So that's two different situations. Yeah, that's question number one. And number two is that today a lot of ECDIS-related routines on a vessel, one way or the other, linked to this weekly cycles. People do the ENC status reports on a weekly basis. They do recheck of their routes for the safety, and then so on and so forth. Yeah, a good basis for that, for instance, is the product TXT. So if we file, which is part of this S63 distribution scheme, if you run this service and you push out this file, the complete file with every event-driven update, then obviously you're going to come up with the several, if not several hundred versions of the product TXT file, possibly on the same vessel, with the same ENC reference date. It will tell you ENC reference date week 36, 2021, and there will be several versions of that. So theoretically, you can come up with a totally different reports for the same week as to the status. Yeah, so was this impact for the weekly and regular routine procedures on the vessel were considered for this stuff? And last question, but not least, I mean, it's great technology. It's important to shorten the time from 10 days or whatever it is now to 1 or possibly some hours. But on the other side, I think that it should be done in combination with looking at the overall time. How long does it take from information being part of the real world until it's on a vessel? So we all know that sometimes it takes hydrographic office from, I mean, you tell me, from 4 to 8 weeks to come up with the updates for the ENC telling you, okay, something has changed there. So we have already the starting point, like 8-week delay from the event to the availability of the update. So it means that rushing it from 10 days to 1 day is worth a hassle. I mean, it should be done in combination to shorten the time altogether. Yeah?
Yeah, so the first part of your question regarding the categorization of the updates, that I don't think we've looked at that, given that the update, we consider an update to be the same category, because providing that to the distributor and then asking them to decide whether they should deliver that immediately or whether they should prioritize the delivery of an update over something else just isn't going to work. Plus, obviously, the updates are sequential and need to be applied in that manner in the ECDIS system. So we haven't looked at categorization of updates for those reasons, really. It wasn't deemed something that we would be part of that project. Now, regarding the product.txt, that's something which we have agonized over a lot, and obviously you've brought up some of the challenges with that. But what we're envisaging is that every time that the new exchange set is loaded, it replaces the existing product.txt. So there would only ever be one in the system in use at any time. The other ones obviously become obsolete as soon as a new one's received and it's replaced in the system. And that in doing that, in providing the complete product.txt, it makes sure that, as we said, all of those statuses of your other holdings within the system still remain compliant and up to date. So even though we may only be delivering 3 updates to the vessel, by providing the full product.txt, it doesn't then set the status of all those other cells that you have on board to unknown. So that was the reason why we chose to go with that concept. And rightly, if someone is trying to manage that manually in the vessel, that's going to be a nightmare. But we obviously are expecting these services to be automatic, and the way that Konstantin's described the system taking control of the application of that, we think that would be quite feasible for the system to take management of that. And the third question, I can't remember what you said now. it took so long. Yeah.
In my mind, it's easy. So basically, sorry for combining them.
That's all right.
Time between the
okay. Yes. Right.
hydrographic office.
Okay.
So that's 8 weeks.
Yep.
And you deliver that change within a day. It's
Yeah.
still 8 weeks and a day. It
Yeah.
doesn't really change.
That is obviously something that we've looked at, and we're in talks with our data providers and with all of the people that we receive the data from because they now know about or we're making it more widely known about the availability of the service. The way in which the data can be processed can change, and it needs to. We're moving away from a reliance on paper chart being the first product that gets looked at or reviewed, to be, let's call it the master document, and then the ENC being an add-on. And it's being flipped on its head, where actually the ENC is the first product that gets managed and is managed through a database, and the paper chart is a byproduct of managing that. And with that change will result in information being able to be processed through the hydrographic office in a much more timely manner. And so that then obviously all goes to help delivering data to the vessel, streamlining that process, because we're not now concentrating on managing the paper chart and managing the two products in sync, trying to keep them up to date so that the same updates go out in the same week for your paper chart and your ENC. That link will be firmly broken, and it will be ENC first, and then paper just comes out as a byproduct of managing that database. Chris,
Okay,
did you want to?
That's of course looks promising. And just one comment to the second point about the procedures. I think that should be, let's say, reviewed in the combination as to impact, because, for instance, today, when they do the stuff weekly, then it's kind of established, understood routine. So if it's done event-driven changes, then on a way, just an example, from Hamburg to whatever, Singapore, which is probably, 500, 600 cells on a way from one point to another. So theoretically, you can have the updates, whatever, not even every day, but possibly every hour. Yeah, so and then there should be a clear understanding how the on-board procedure should look.
Yes.
I mean, are they supposed to recheck the monitoring route? Is it still safe, and so on and so forth? Yeah.
And we totally agree. That's actually the question that we're posing back now, really, to the audience, because delivering the availability of the updates is one thing, and making building the infrastructure to deliver that is something that we've been working on. Now the process down the chain and how that then has to be enacted, and the services that are then built using that pipeline, is something which we don't have necessarily the control over, but we think we will be able to overcome some of those obstacles. I mean, yes, which poses those particular questions. So do you want to move on to that one, Konstantin? Yeah.
Yeah. As mentioned already, we consider different scenarios from operational perspective on board. One is like with every new update, the user must do the route check. That is, of course, not convenient and will not be appreciated by mariners in this case. The other scenario would be to deliver information, what particular chart, and to deliver information about the update, what exactly was changed. And that would make it easier for the user to understand what was changed and then check on particular location and then apply different measures to avoid particular danger or whatever they would like to do. Yeah, there could be more advanced technologies that is on the next slide, like analyze the route against the new update, do the route check as show instead of sending, making the user to do it on board and notify that, well, there is a danger on your route, you have to avoid, and then probably suggest another route. So that's just ideas for the future.
Pipeline that we're delivering offers an opportunity for ECDIS manufacturers and for distributors to revolutionize, really, the way in which data is delivered and then is used on board. Because I think the concept that Konstantin's suggesting there is that if the distributor knows the location of the vessel as well and knows the route, then they can send just the updates to the vessel for the remaining part of the voyage. Because if you sailed past a load of data, do you need all the updates in an event-driven process if you've sailed past all of those charts? So there's things that we can do with the service, or things that ECDIS manufacturers can do with the service when we start to deliver the data in this form. But as we're talking about now, the policies and processes that have to be employed on board will have to change to accommodate that new data delivery mechanism. And it's how we do that and how that works, I think, and the impact is what we're trying to lessen as we step through this. Did you want to come back on that point, Chris, just quickly before?
Yeah. I think what Tom I think the key part as a product manager, what I'm trying to do is to get ATS to work more efficiently. I spend a good number of times on board ships looking at things that I haven't got a card update for, and they might say it's like that. Would we say, oh, it's fine, you come by post, that's not the bottom with Sundays? Would we now say we have the capability to deliver that update that's provided by the local content manufacturers to a ship that's in their water to stop the being out there? Would we stop doing that because the segment insists on it being weak? There is no, the event-driven doesn't have a concept of weeks. There has a big change we need to kind of communicate. There is no week 39 in the event-driven update. It just comes as soon as it's ready. If you're on the weekly service, you're still tied in with that. If you're on the event-driven service, you get the stuff straight away. So the concept of okay. We have a little bit of an issue which has been raised already with products.txt and status files and things like that, where they've been built around the concept of a week, and the week number is in the text of the file, and the serial.enc has that in there. Actually, how do we do that as a hydrographic office if we collect together week 39's data and prepare it on a Friday, which is what happens at the moment, ready for the following Thursday, but we have an important update that needs to go out on Monday? It can't go in week 39's. Do we wait until next Friday before we issue it so that it becomes week 40, or do we get on and deliver it? No, we get on and deliver it. And so we're not talking about weeks anymore. We're just talking about stuff coming through, which is why it goes right back to the sales catalog service and the products.txt files. What the compliance guys are looking at is no different from what they do at the moment, which might be a little bit a way we have to explain, and we've started all this already with MCA and with OCIMP. The compliance regime says, let me look at your system, and are you following your system? If your system says, I'm on a weekly update service from my distributor, get the weekly update, put it on the ECDIS, that's fine. They look at the catalogue that comes with a weekly update, products.txt file, and is it up to date? If they're on the event-driven service, the distributor can have a conversation with their shipping company and say, how's daily sound to you? How does instantly sound to you? How does every other day sound to you? And you can build whatever they want to do. They can work with that. But the catalogue that they look at when they show the inspector is the catalogue that comes with that service. The latest product text issued on the Monday or the latest sales catalogue service. So part of what we want to do and part of what we're here today for is to find out from potential customers how and what do you need from Hydrographic Office to explain that to your vessel crew, to write your SMS, to take away any concerns you might have with compliance inspectors. Because we can't say we're not going to do it. We have to do it. And we want to go back to the suppliers of data to us to say, stop sending it to us on a week. You know, some hydrographic is already starting to put things on the cloud as soon as it's ready. We'll pull that. We'll put it through our validation. We'll pull it through the rank and issue it as soon as possible. We'll pass it on to distributors as soon as possible. Distributors will have a conversation with their customers as soon as possible, hopefully, but it could be daily if that's what they want to do. And then they have a conversation with the navigators and a conversation with the ECDIS manufacturers. How is the best way of getting that on board so that we don't have to use an USB once a week? And let's start the conversation from that way around. And right the way back up through, I've spoken to port captains who have said, if I issue an update, if I tell somebody that there's a new shoal off my port and I have to send that out as a nav warning because it's really important it gets on board, if I tell the Hydrographic Office straight away and they prioritise an update, you're telling me you can have it on board a ship within 5 minutes. Maybe I'll cut down the number of nav warnings. Maybe they'll get the complete picture rather than just a text of there's a wreck somewhere and you have to plot it on your ECDIS. Point comes up in your ECDIS straight away. There's a lot to win, you know. Good. Sorry.
I think there was a question from the back there. Yeah.
Well, I'm Gunnar Tietze from C-Topic in France and in Germany. I have a question which may be a little bit beyond only updating, and maybe when looking at S111, the surface currents, it will become the most obvious. So my question is, what we are talking right now, it has always the touch of still being official ENCs, official maps, like it has been in paper time. How do you see the future for opening direct data input from other sources or private enterprise, like it is the case with the weather people? There are many companies offering weather services. So I could imagine that having the ECDIS platform, someone could offer excellent current data or even current forecast. So there's a question how ECDIS can tackle the timestamp in being in future. But these could be interesting input for the mariners to have a picture on the environmental situation at actual or a couple of hours or a day before when planning things. So how do you see the path? Would this be channeled always by UKHO or SHOM or BSH or whatever? Or could there be open door for direct input, or even being a kind of competition on speeding the data flow? Thank you.
I think that's a very good question, one which is sort of being discussed at the moment, and it comes back to some of the discussions really that we're having at the moment at the IHO with regards to updating the ECDIS performance standard for the new S100 products. And one of the premise of the new S100 standard is that it would be interoperable with all of the different S100 products that are developed. And what it's hoped is that the new ECDIS system, the new S100 ECDIS system, will be able to take the dynamic data sets of S102 and S104 and potentially the likes of S111 and incorporate that information into the alarms and indications that will be given to the mariner. And if that's the case, I think as it's going into the performance standard, what we'd see is that it would be a core set of product specifications that would have to be produced by hydrographic offices. But there are some, and I don't think it precludes people providing private data, but whether or not the ECDIS could then use that to drive the alarms and indications from the system, that may be potentially more of an issue. But these are things which are currently under discussion, really, at the IHO at the moment. And the IHO, working with other stakeholders, are drafting the next version of the the next version of the ECDIS performance standard at the moment, with a view to taking that to NCSR 9, I think, which will be in April, I think, from memory. I think it's just been announced. Alongside the ECDIS guidance for good practice, a new draft of that. So that work is underway, and whether or not that provides an open door for the private supply of new S100 data, I think maybe it potentially would be similar to what we have today, where there would be an unofficial data pattern around the product, and the ECDIS would have to give an indication that it wasn't necessarily using that official data. That would be my gut feeling. But at this stage, it's really nothing's been decided in terms of that as yet. I don't know, Konstantin, did you want to have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think it's fine. You answered the question.
Yeah.
I saw Emma.
Oliver? Emma? No. So for us at the moment, that's something which we're working with all of our data partners to make them aware of the service at this stage, because part of this journey for us is that they need to be brought along with this new concept. No one else is really looking at this stage, and once they understand that we have that capability, like Chris just described with ports providing data because they know that we can process it through and get that to the vessel really quickly. I think it will be the same sorts of concepts with our data providers. Once they know we have that capability, they can change their approach to the way that they deliver that data. So I think it will be an iterative sort of cycle. As they become more familiar with the capability that we have, then more will start to maybe change their processes and the way they deliver the data to us. The ranks will modernise. I think IC&C have an action to start with the event-driven delivery of data as well. So once we start to see IC&C provide that capability, we expect Primar to also provide that capability, because the ranks are provided or are providing services for their members. And you can't have some hydrographic offices, like you said, producing only weekly information. If it doesn't make any sense. If they've got it sat there waiting just to be replicated, we should be able to receive all of that information from all the different hydrographic offices in an event-driven process. And that's our aspiration, is that every hydrographic office is delivering the data to us in that way, so that we can then pass that on to the mariner.
I can only add here that Primar already provides some kind of, it's not event-driven update, but it's dynamic update. So they don't send notifications, that they don't push updates, but they update the collection, like could update it anytime. So that's...
Yes.
And one more question. The implementation of the new standards, S100s, for example, for navigation coordinates, it will take, I would say, years until this standard will be accepted, then new ECDIS performance standards probably must be approved. So I see the long time of implementation, for example, of navigational warnings with the S100 standard. But you have AIO already implemented. So why not to put navigational warnings on the AIO layer and to distribute it on the daily basis, for example?
Chris, you
Yeah, we'd love to do something like that. The AIO has, the construct of the AIO doesn't quite allow it yet, because it has to have Ps, EPNs, no overlay. Those are fixed in the AIO as an object, but also hardware reads those functions in the portrait. So we can't kind of say, oh, we'll just add a new feature, because the ECDIS needs to understand that. So we have to do it right the way through to the end. So AIO will probably develop as a thing, will become slightly different.
But, and certainly AIO, I hope, will also become instantly updated more than once a week, because it makes sense. But AIO isn't quite the vehicle for doing what it is that you're asking. But it's a good point. And
so it means technically you don't have possibility to implement, because AIO is understandable by all ECDIS manufacturers nowadays. It took time until all manufacturers of ECDIS implemented AIO support. So now we have the layer which theoretically
navigational warnings. I'd have to go round to every ECDIS manufacturer who's implemented the current data model and say, please, sir, can you extend my AIO? And some of them may say yes, some of them may say no. So it wouldn't necessarily deliver the results that you're expecting or thinking it may do. It would take a lot of time to implement, just because it has to be done on a case-by-case basis by each individual ECDIS manufacturer. So that's what makes it quite tricky. And actually, the problem with that is S57. We built the data model using an older version of a standard, which is quite outdated. But if we'd done that in S100, S100 is extendable. And we have this concept in S100 of being able to deliver new feature and portrayal catalogues to a system. And they would automatically understand that there had been a new feature added to the product, because we had sent you a new feature catalogue, and we would send you a way to present that data. So if you're using a new S100 ECDIS and you were displaying the AIO, we could very quickly and easily extend that data model to incorporate that new information that you're talking about, and it could be instantaneously understood by the ECDIS on the bridge, because it had read the new feature and portrayal catalogues and would be able to update all of that product to display that new feature. So in the new S100 world, that's very feasible, what you're talking about there. But when we're stuck in S57 and that product is built on older standards, it just isn't possible and doesn't have that flexibility, which is unfortunate. But that just, it would take time to implement through.
Can I add something?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I'd like to add was S124, that is navigational warnings. It's my favorite standard. I believe it will bring benefit to mariners, and actually it's really beneficial. And this navigational warning, S124, it suits the purpose of this dynamic updates completely. So it's exactly what is required for that. Because finally it will look similar to what Mariner already have in Navtex, right? But yeah, you will have the same navigational warnings directly on the ECDIS and updated dynamically in real time. So this is what already available in Navtex, but with S124 it will be global and more convenient probably for the user. Will give more information. But until it is in place, private producers, private data providers, we fill this gap with our CIO Plus products. So that's.
But involved with Navtex. Navigation warnings we see, it's available from the private.
Yeah, from CIO Plus. Yeah.
What about NAVTEX?
NAVTEX, in some parts it is included as well. Yeah. Basically, what is included here is that, yeah, it's first of all, it's temporary and preliminary notices to mariners from different hydrographic offices. Then second, what we call nav area warnings, and coastal and local warnings as well, if such warnings is available in internet. So what we do, we download it from internet from different, I think it's 30 plus different sources of local authorities that provide such warnings in the internet. So we download, collect it, pack it, and deliver it as CIO Plus. It's, yeah, I cannot tell that it's like a seamless and global coverage, but of course with the S124, yeah, then every local authority, every hydrographic office will deliver their own warnings in agreed format in S124, then of course that's the ideal world in the future. But yeah, still, we are not yet there.
When we should expect this?
Tom is the chairman of ENC working group.
So thank you for that. Yeah. Okay. So as I said earlier, we're revising the ECDIS performance standard. That if we look at the happy path that's been painted by the IHO, then we're expecting the performance standard to be updated, to have testing standards in place, to have test data available to test new systems in place, and data sets and services ready to have a commercially viable product somewhere in the region of 2027, 2028. That's the current IHO aspiration, and one that they've painted in their roadmap and made available in their strategy. So that's what they're hoping for. We were discussing yesterday that really is the path which has least resistance, if you like, and one that doesn't account for a global pandemic or any other catastrophe that could possibly arise. So really, that's what we're expecting. In the interim, what we expect to happen, and this is UKHO, is that we will see the back of bridge tools start to implement S100 services in advance of the type-approved ECDIS, and that there will be services available which may take private data based on S100, that may be able to take services from hydrographic offices. And the UKHO is prioritising the development and availability of 4 core navigational products based on S100 at the moment. So that's S101, which will be the replacement ENC. Then you've got the high-density bathymetry, S104, and hoping to have viable service of that integrated with S101. It may be integrated with S57, but at this stage, that's the way in which we believe these services will start to be made available to the more to mariners. Some of you may have heard about the trials that are happening in portable pilot units with S102, the high-density bathymetry, and those tests and those trials are all ongoing at the moment to test the capability of the new data. But all of these standards that we're talking about in S100 are still under development. They're not finalised. There are still things that we're finding out, usability issues, and it's still really in a test phase. It's not the services aren't stable enough to build live services and make that available yet for mariners. But as I said, we're expecting them to become much more stable in the next couple of years for us to then start to look at having live services around that 2024-25 sort of area. Does anyone have any further questions? If not, it's 12 o'clock. We think we've managed to get to our time. Did you want to add anything, Konstantin?
No, only thank you. Axel, you probably had some questions. No? Oh. Okay.
So just to wrap it up, I also think that from a mariner's perspective, I think the workload would probably increase by having this irregular interval for chart updates. And for me, in the meantime, until we have this S100 ready, maybe kind of like a hybrid would be, for me, the ideal solution. So that means you push the majority of updates on a weekly basis, but you have the chance to get an important update out of that cycle. And I think this is maybe the challenge to drill down what is now relevant and what is important for the vessel to have immediately. And the other stuff that is not so relevant or necessarily changing the route, that can come on a weekly cycle. So maybe that's something that can be looked into until we are with the technology ready to implement that immediate cycle or that cycle. And maybe it's also something that the chart providers can do to filter out what is relevant, but maybe also the content of what is being changed needs to be more classified.
That's a very good issue, actually. A very good question that was raised. And it continues what Andrei already told. We would need some kind of categorization, but the problem here is that no one wants to take responsibility for that. So, hydrographic office provides information to data provider provides information to mariner. And then that's the mariner's responsibility to take the decision on this information. What we as a data provider can do is to give this information in convenient form, understandable and better readable by the mariner, but still final decision stays on board. So,
I think I see it as if we filter it down to only the information that you require that may affect the route, given a corridor that the mariner selects. That's the way in which you can filter the information to keep it to a manageable level. And if you are sending positions back to your data providers, then they would only be sending you the updates that are applicable to that corridor that you've already set. So potentially there are ways in which that could be managed and filtered. Oliver, your hand shot right at.
So has the work done any analytics on the number of events we expected on single voyages? Looking at specific voyages and saying, based on historic data we've seen in the past, we will expect to see 2 events per day or 20 events? Because that will have an impact on the user experience and the process we will need to identify to make this used in a long way. So have you looking into any historic data to understand what is going to be the challenge we are going to face?
So based on route, we've not done that analysis. What we were looking at is how many events were due to updates and how many were due to new additions, how many new additions and things were coming through the pipeline. And obviously what we've seen is that the majority of the changes that happen on a weekly basis are due to updates, not necessarily the new charts that are coming through. So we were looking more at the data volumes of the total, not drilling down into the most popular routes and how many events happen on each route, in a given time period. That analysis we'd not done because we're not delivering that service. I think that but that's Chris. Do you want to?
I hear the worry and the concern. As I said earlier on, that's why I'm here to work out how we can improve that. I think I will play it back. There's a lot more updates than our data. That's not about how much more we're going to have data every day below our satellite. So the same amount of data is
same updates coming through will look the same way. Yes, there will be updates coming through, made available from us straight away. Now, at the moment, the data is provided to us in big lumps. ECDIS data, primaries data, that kind of thing. We hope that those suppliers will start to filter it down to us, drip feed it to us, and now allow us to drip feed further down. If a customer says, I absolutely don't want my second mate to do any updates except on Thursday, well, you can have a conversation with the ship manager. If you don't want to take it, that's kind of your issue. But, as a second officer, here's an example. One of our people at data ECS have a rule on board that they can only update their objectives when they're in port. They can't do it on Thursday. If they're at sea, they have to do it when they're in port. Which means that if they have to do it on a Thursday, they sail on a Wednesday. They are already a week out of date before they even sail. Whereas we made that available right up to the instant that we sailed. Why would we try and downplay our service if that's the case? So I think what I would say is we're making stuff available. Now it's over to the OEMs and to the data providers and the people providing the pipeline and the backup bringing that bit of the work to say, guys, have a look at it. Talk to your second officer. It's really important. Don't talk to the people in the shipping company office. Talk to the second officer and say, which would you prefer? A little warning that comes up in the corner of your screen which says, update available. Great. Okay, nothing about it at the moment. Our procedure says I can do that when it's safe to do so. Update. There's a show I just about to go over.
Sure, but what I was asking is it 2 updates or 20 updates? So do I need to perform the route check twice a day or 20 times a day? And that's Axel's concern.
Yes,
He's saying he doesn't want to do it 20 times a day.
No, but if as you were saying earlier on, if the systems are listening to that updates and informing the mariner as to whether there's any change, that's where the intelligence of the system can really work. That's where the value can be added by the likes of what we're talking about here. No, absolutely. The navigator doesn't want to just go to route monitoring or average wants to go into route check every hour. That would be crazy. So but they need a system that says there's been an update that affects your route, and you might even say it's categorization, it's an important update. But that needs to be worked through, and what one person's important update, another person's I don't care. There's a lot of learning to be done, but I think from a typographic office point of view, it's beholden on us to get stuff out as quickly as we can, and that's kind of what we're doing here. Some of the important or not important is done by the compiler. If the compiler in the typographic office decides that the shoal is not important, they'll put it in an update. If they decide it is important, it should be on the vessel. And we've got to get it out the door, and yes, the way the system works, it has to be presented to us something to kind of
if they are coming on a daily basis from UKHO to you, to the vessel. And as well, I can understand you. I mean, I'm a sailor, so I can understand you that you will not take over the responsibility to make a separation between that are important updates and this is not important. And as well, if we are looking to the workload, which was as well a keyword now in our discussion, I'm not a big fan of your opinion, to be honest, to say, okay, I have some updates which are important and we will deliver it on a daily basis, and some general remaining things we will continue to deliver it on a weekly basis. So what can be an idea is that you continue with providing the updates on a daily basis as a provider, and as we know, we are using a kind of station, and to integrate there something like a pop-up message. If the captain, who's at the end of the day responsible for it, or the second mate can see, hey, I have received new updates for my active portfolio on board, and there are done these and these updates. And then it is still up to the vessel's management, I mean captain, second officer, to transfer the updates to the ECDIS. Since we still have the matter with the cybersecurity, which we should not forget, is how do I get the data from the workstation to the ECDIS? So of course there are plenty things which can be possible, but usually, for example, in our fleet, we are still running with the USB stick from place A to place B in order to be in line with the cybersecurity stuff. So.
Oh, yeah, we deliver information only, brief information, what is updated and what included in this update. But we leave the decision for mariner on board, so that's...
I think that's a really good place to finish. I think that summed up exactly the concept that we think can be delivered through event-driven updating and how it can improve safety. So I think we'll end the session there, if that's okay with everyone. And thank you very much for joining us. Okay.
Probably went after 12 o'clock already, so people are maybe hungry. Just one more perhaps provocative question. I think that technology is a no-brainer. And it's a long time overdue. I would expect this to be happening way earlier. And as a shipping company, I would expect this technology to be available tomorrow, not in 2027. As long as it doesn't mean extra costs or too much extra costs, let's say like this. Yes. So the question is, how can we speed up the process? Yes, how can we make this available tomorrow? Yes, we don't want to wait until authorities get a butt up. Yeah, so that's a challenge. Yes, and do you have an idea? Probably, I don't know. But as I said, it's a provocative question. But how can we speed up the process?
Speed up the process of S100, or are we
getting that in place, getting it approved, and getting it available for shipping?
So this service, as I said, we're launching this service on the 8th of November this year. So that will be made available to distributors.
No, not event.
Sorry, event-driven. Yep.
Updates will be on.
Event-driven updates will be available from this year, November the 8th, beginning of that week. We're going to start making those events available for distributors to come and collect that information. Sorry?
Is that global? Global ENC?
Yes. 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 All ENC updates will be available for distributors. Now, obviously, this is the first time we've done it, so I'm hoping that this month we will find all the problems and that there won't be any issues, and that when we get to launch date, that it's all fine. But potentially, you know, subject to everything going swimmingly, the 8th of November was the date which we discussed with the distributors at our monthly meeting in September, and we've made that date we're committed to that date at this stage. Further iterations of the project, we will be looking to include licensing so that we can then deliver the new additions and deliver cancel and replace sales in an event-driven process as well. Because if you need a new cell, you'll still have to wait for that week for the information to come because of the licensing part of that process that's required. And that, obviously, as we talked about earlier on, the biggest benefit you get from this service is through the updates, because the majority of our changes are updates on a weekly basis. The number of new charts and the number of new additions just isn't the volume just isn't the same as the updates. So that's why we've chosen to prioritize the delivery of event-driven updates first, and then go and produce the functionality that will be required to deliver the new charts and new additions in a second phase of the project. So the challenge is laid down to distributors and chart providers and things to start thinking about how that can then be turned into a service that can deliver that to the mariner.
I have a small tip for you.
Yeah.
We flew those pleasure crafts, and you had about 28 million boats to test this on, and not only sold us, that's maybe 60-70,000 ships. Then you would have a lot more possibilities to test and implement these.
format, still SE3, it's still in the same exchange set. So downstream, there's kind of an exchange that we issue will move on it. We tested that. There's nothing to change. The customer exchange set that you would ask for. That if you extrapolate the availability, it's much more significantly.
Thank you.
And yeah.
Good. Lunch is